Hey guys, this is Sean with Beo String Quartet. What is music? Music can be whatever we choose to listen to, produced by any instrument or object, really. Of course, there's also the literal production of sound waves organized into keys, forms, and genres. This might be music to some people. For me personally, though, music is any sound that makes me feel. I fell in love with music because of how it makes me feel and how it invites others to feel something. This music, the stuff that makes us feel something, it can be a telescope to look at a universe created by someone, or a microscope to get a glimpse into the intimate spirit of another human being. Music can also simply be this: sheet music. The notes, articulations, slurs, dynamics, and various markings that we train to learn how to read and train to try and make sense of, these all make up music. How do we get the spirit of humanity to come from the marks on a page? How do we look at a sheet of music and hear a work of art rather than see a bunch of dots and markings? This is what we're going to look at in this video. For this video, I'm going to be asking you to play your instrument. So if you don't have it ready, go ahead and hit pause, grab your instrument, get tuned up, and we'll continue. Obviously, there's a correlation between what's written on a page and the music that we hear. Take, for instance, this. This clip shows impassioned, loud, aggressive playing, followed by silly, sweet, and soft music. It's a lot of different characters. Let's take a look at what the music actually shows us. Pretty much what you might expect. Measure 51 is fortissimo for 2 bars, followed by a more sparsely orchestrated mezzo piano section. Nothing too mind-blowing. Looking at the score and not seeing much, you might not expect to hear Now, for contrast, let's watch this clip. There's a lot happening in this clip. Soft, floating, heavenly harmonics, block chords creating suspense, angst, and finally some relief, a slow viola solo, and a full quartet figure that seems to disappear into nothing. Let's see what's in the score. Pardon my amazing measure numbering system, you'll see what I mean. Looking at the score, you see a very meticulous layout. In measure 12, the first violin and cello are asked to play with no vibrato. At the end of the bar, we're all to play sul ponticello, but only 3/4 sul ponticello, so the composer is looking for a very specific sound. In measure 14, we have a long fermata, followed by a series of other fermatas, but none of the other ones say long. So how long are they? As long? Not as long? All the same length? In this case, the markings really force us to think. In measure 16, the second violin and cello accompany the viola with notes that have grace notes tied to the same note. So the composer is looking for notes to start just before the viola big beat pulses. Again, a very specific and controlled sound. Lastly, measure 18. There's this homorhythmic passage. Every note has a fermata. It starts with 3 Ps, and all happens under a hairpin diminuendo. A lot of direction from the composer. Hopefully, when you were hearing this passage, you weren't thinking of any of the stuff and just enjoying the music. But all of these meticulous markings create quite the world for us to inhabit. Now let's look at the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Here's the score of what you're about to hear. Don't worry about the clefs, just notice what's written other than the notes. Nothing! Knowing that, let's hear how we play this passage. There are fermatas being added, the tempo is being pushed and pulled like taffy, the sound is resonant, perhaps aggressive, very warm, and after all of that we get the final chord with no vibrato, just straight. And the only thing that's on our page is notes. We're of course making decisions on how to play this based on the score, history, and other conventions, but that's for a different video. For this last example, I'm going to show you the score and the video at the same time. Notice how the written directives in the score influence our sound and character. You can see how the word moving is obsessively written in the score. The composer could have written a crescendo and a accelerando at the start of the passage, but the way it's written is so much more dramatic and gives the performers more to work with. If you want to know what the heck was happening with the sound in that clip, you'll have to tune into another project we'll be releasing soon, and that is called synergistic plugging. Now that we've looked at some examples, it's your turn to play. I'm going to teach you a short piece of music where we're focusing solely on shapes, sounds, colors, and characters. Then at the end, we'll look at how these musical decisions might look on printed sheet music. Here are the first 5 bars of the piece that we're going to learn together. This opening theme is really lovely and quite tender. You can use a floaty sound. The dotted rhythm really lets you sing and focus on sustaining sound and hopefully beautiful vibrato. It's just the beginning though, so I'm not going to play too loud. Still a comfortable sound, just not too loud. Why don't you play these opening 3 bars with me? Here we go. 2, 3, and... Then we have measures 6 and 7. I think they're doing something really neat. Measure 6 is going down, then measure 7 continues that for a little bit, but then goes back up. Literally, these are just what the notes are doing, so I want to mimic that. Throughout measure 6, I'm going to let my sound just disappear. And then throughout measure 7, I'm going to let the sound intensify and hopefully lead to something. So it would sound like this for measure 6. Why don't you try that with me, right from measure 6. 3, 4, 1. Exactly. Playing measure 6 and 7 like this, we open the range of colors and sounds that we get even just in the first 5 bars. Let's play these 5 bars from rehearsal A together so we can hear what this opening little section sounds like. From rehearsal A. 2, 3, and... The next 4 bars should sound familiar. This time around, we're making the melody full, confident, and rich. It's the same melody, but the big, loud brother version of that, something I have experience with. Measure 11 is funny. So much music is about the first note of a bar. I'm making measure 11 about the last note of the bar. I'm growing to it, building intensity, and then exploding on that last note and keeping it short to help add to the drama. This will bring nice contrast to the singing bars before it. Listen to what I mean. Let's play these 4 measures together. This is from rehearsal B. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. Good. I hope you remember to lead to that last note and keep it short. Now, if you think about the first part of the first 5 bars that we looked at, and you add these from B until C, what we just did, we increase the amount of contrast and character that we get. Just to remind ourselves how much we're playing with sound and contrast of character and color, let's play from rehearsal A all the way to rehearsal C to remind ourselves of all the different sounds we're using. So here we go from rehearsal A together. 2, 3, and... Moving ahead, this is rehearsal C to rehearsal D. These first 2 bars should sound pretty familiar. Look at measure 6. This time, though, the figure at rehearsal C is short, light, and playful, and measure 13 is contrasting that by being long and connected in a more fudgy sound. Then we have a version of the main melody played similar to the beginning, but growing to measure 16. And measure 16 is a very aggressive arrival that quickly disappears. Let's play all of that together from rehearsal C. Here we go. 3, 4, 1. Wow, there's a lot happening here. Let's play it together one more time and get all of the character changes. Allow yourself to really focus on your sounds and characters, and don't worry so much about the notes. Here we go. From rehearsal C again. 3, 4. So from rehearsal A all the way into rehearsal D, we have a huge variety of colors and sounds and characters, and really just a relatively few amount of bars. Let's play all of that. Let's go back to rehearsal A. Try and match my sound and colors and the characters, but also allow yourself to enjoy this huge variety that you get to play with just from rehearsal A until rehearsal D. Here we go. 2, 3, and...
Are we live? Yep, we're good. Oh, we're not live? Oh, it's being recorded.
Here's what the next passage sounds like. It's one long transition. I'm not going to tell you what it's transitioning to quite yet. You'll see that in a second. In the meantime, though, measures 17 and 18 are one shape. It starts small, sparkling, and distant, and then measure 18 just erupts. Measure 19 resets back to this distant sound, and rather than a sudden eruption, builds over 3 bars. We arrive to this piercing high E flat. The Ds that follow are insistent. They're trying to move, but are somehow stuck. You can feel the tar stretching, the mud thickening, and everything is just pulling back. Let's play this passage together all the way from rehearsal D. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's important to make sure that the soft, distant color is soft and distant enough, and then make sure once we arrive to the piercing E flat that we never lose the intensity thereafter. We're trying to heighten the contrast. We're trying to bring the contrasts to an extreme, both on the low and the high end. Let's try it again where we can focus on that. From rehearsal D. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, if you haven't guessed it by now, all of this building, this big transition, it's taking us to another special statement of the opening melody. This time with a huge and warm sound and a quality of not wanting to let any note go. This is what it sounds like. Just when you think I'm finally arriving at the moment, I pull the sound away and simultaneously create tension with the tremolo. That's music for you. Play this passage with me. Don't get fooled into that false ending. It's not what we want. And don't forget that huge, beautiful, rich, open sound right when we start. This is our rehearsal E. Here we go. 2, 3, and...
Can you turn this one?
We've had a huge moment and ripped the satisfaction of an arrival away from the listener. So where do we go from here? We, of course, go back to the melody. But this time the melody is presented in a way we've not yet heard it, fragmented, distant, cold, perhaps chillingly devoid of the tenderness we had at its introduction. It sounds like this. Play it with me. Don't worry about all the rests. I'll show you where to play. We're going to start from the bar after F and see if we can bring out this cold, distant quality. 1, 2, 3. Now that we've worked through the whole piece, I'm going to play it for you, but with the accompaniment. Notice all the character and sound changes. Focus on the shapes and how they interact with the accompaniment. course, you know what's next. I would love to have you play this with me and the accompaniment. The accompaniment has a 2-bar lead in. Don't worry, you can watch me, it'll help bring us in. All of the decisions we've made on how to play this piece, they can be written in very familiar ways. We know them as articulations, dynamics. Here's what the part actually looks like. Obviously, we've created this short work and made decisions how to play things in a manner it's meant to show the extreme of what we want to get across. But do you remember the Beo examples at the start of the video? There was a lot of character and color in these clips, and most of it came from what was written in the score. If we can reprogram ourselves to see dynamics as character, crescendi and hairpins as the transformation of sound, and as the written directives as simply setting the environment, how we look at a score can completely change. All of a sudden, looking at a sheet of music is opening up a world of colors and journeys in our head. And when we do pick up our instrument to start practicing, we already have an idea of what we're practicing toward. Yes, notes, intonation, rhythm, form, all of these things are vastly important, of course. But like I said in the beginning, none of us have been drawn to music for the sake of intonation or simply to hear sound waves clashing. We play music because of how it makes us feel and how we can help others feel. Challenge yourself to look at a score differently the next time you start your work. See if you can hear the sound of worlds before you play a single note. See if the poetry can unfold in your mind before hitting the metronome. And then, go practice.
Lingering upon 2 feet.
I hope you've enjoyed this video. Beo will be releasing more videos like this for anyone to use or watch. If you do like what you see, go to our website and make a donation. Like all musicians and artists in this time of social distancing and uncertainty, we're trying to keep producing content that is hopefully relevant, educational, and entertaining. Every dollar helps us endeavor. Thank you so much.